Welcome back, everyone. It's Thursday, August 11th, 2022, and I haven't been rated yet. Duane Generalissimo Patterson of the Hugh Hewitt Show, master of the universe, HUGHNIVERSE.com. The troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt listeners. Have you been rated? Has the universe been rated yet?
I have not been rated yet. The universe has not been rated yet. And if we do get rated, I think I'm going to employ the Robert Francis O'Rourke grading. I think is what I'll do when the FBI raids. I think I'm going to go full Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Yeah, that's we're going to get to that in a moment. But well, let's talk about this right now, because this is sort of the latest and greatest.
The feel good story of the day.
The feel good story of the day. I don't think you've had a chance to get the video on this, so I'm not going to ask you to play it. But Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke running for governor of Texas was someplace. It was some sort of small event, right? I mean, there couldn't have been more than 60 people in this room, right? That were
just like a stump speech, basically.
And a lot of people holding up Beto signs. So this is probably Austin.
Probably in Austin.
Probably in Austin.
And of course, I refuse to call a grown man Beto or whatever else. He's Robert Francis O'Rourke. Beto is Spanish for MFer. I'm pretty confident that's how that's loosely translated.
So he's in the middle of this thing about Uvalde, right? And I know he's going to run on this, and he's running on gun control of Texas, which is, amusing as it is anyway.
Is he going to use Eric Adams' New York, Brooklyn door knockers?
Absolutely.
To campaign on the gun control issue?
Absolutely. That's exactly what's going to happen. Eric Adams has probably already called Beto to talk about this. But at any rate, he's talking about this and saying, he went in there and he was able to, he could have bought more than one AR-15. It's a weapon of war. It was designed to shoot through helmets in Vietnam. And, it makes a string of, unsupported statements about the AR-15, and then apparently kneels down to demonstrate his combat tactics, at which point in this video, somebody laughs aloud. Now, I gotta say, that was pretty freaking funny, and I think I would have laughed aloud at that too. It's designed to go through a helmet of, the VC, at 500 yards. Yeah, not this rifle. But at any rate, he gets up and he's offended. Duane, Beto O'Rourke is offended, saying, "You might think this is funny, mother freaker." I don't know. That seems a little R-rated, even for a non-FCC podcast in the Salem universe. I'm going to just refer you back to my post about this, and maybe to Duane's after show, but where this will feature heavily tonight. 8 p.m. Eastern time, by the way. Universe.com is where you got to go for that.
Yeah, I don't know about you, maternal fornicator.
It sounds like something Richard Nixon would say.
It sounds like something Richard Nixon would say. No, so look,
that's funny. That's funny. I would have laughed out loud at that in there, because first off, all of his arguments are basically incorrect on this thing anyway, but the whole thing, he's kneeling down to apparently, it's a little off, he's just a bit off camera, but it looks like he's kneeling down to simulate a rifle shot. Where'd you learn that, pal? Did you watch Officer and a Gentleman? Is that how you picked up on that?
Exactly. So no, look, the thing about O'Rourke is, ever since he's been on the stage, whether it's a national stage for 4 nanoseconds, or on on the state stage, he is nothing but a grandstander. Just a couple of months ago, he showed up at some event, and there was somebody that was a placeholder for him in the Uvalde initial press release with Governor Abbott, right?
Right.
Or press conference with Governor Abbott. There was he came to visit to let people cry on the shoulders. It was a consoling thing. This was really raw. and there was a placeholder that came and sat in the front row, and right before the thing starts, all of a sudden the placeholder gets out of the way and in walks Robert Francis O'Rourke
With the cameraman.
with a cameraman, sits down in the front row. I mean, he he does not get out of bed in the morning unless it is scripted and shot suitable with the appropriate lighting for a YouTube video. Um, there's nothing he does that I take seriously because everything is emotive with him. Everything is performance art with him.
Well, just to run down, I mean, I run down the arguments here. The AR-15 was not designed for combat in Vietnam. The AR-15 actually was designed well before we were involved in Vietnam. The military version of the AR-15, of which there was one. Colt was trying to sell it to the military. They redesigned it though when the military decided to go with the M16, and this is actually really mostly before our significant military involvement in Vietnam too. And what we have on sale here is the non-military version of a military rifle that the Pentagon decided was not as good as the M16 was. And that decision, I believe, came in 1964. And again, that's before we really started getting heavily involved militarily in Vietnam. So the idea that this was a weapon that the AR-15s you buy right now were designed to take out Charlie at 500 yards by going through a helmet is, I think we can say bullshit, right? I think we can say bullshit. We can just call it bullshit. It's what it is. It's bullshit.
It is. You know, what was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? You know,
yeah, he's rolling.
Forget it. He's rolling. You know, look, he's not serious with the facts. He's not serious about the argument. It's all heartstrings. It's all emotive, and everything's performance art with the guy. I don't take him seriously. I don't think Texas voters take him seriously. Greg Abbott is going to win that election by
double digits.
Double digits.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There are a lot of people who are wrong about the AR-15. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that floats around about the AR-15 that's just incorrect. And that's almost neither here nor there now. It's just a fact of life. But the idea that after somebody giggled at this little display of his, he jumps up and attacks them. This is a friendly room, by the way. It's not a crowd. I wouldn't call it a crowd, but it's a friendly room. This is apparently either fundraisers or campaign workers. Everybody in there is carrying a Beto sign. And of course, when he calls this guy an MFer, everybody cheers.
I actually have the video.
Oh, yeah. Well, go ahead and play it.
Well, you gotta let me do my.
I'm way ahead of you. It's done.
It's already done. Okay. Well,
I produced this show, pal.
So we've got to do all the obligatory warnings, do we not? Because
not safe for work language, but I think we've already blown past that.
I think that ship has already sailed, but we might as well at least give the warning. Here is Robert Francis O'Rourke blowing a head gasket. Pretty much, my guess would be on cue. My guess is he was instructed, or he was advised, if there was any blowback, to get righteously indignant, because that's how you're going to win people over.
I actually disagree with you, but we'll talk about that after you play. Go ahead and play the video, and I'll tell you why.
Here he is.
I'm going to make sure that now 11 weeks since we lost 19 kids and their 2 teachers shot to death with a weapon originally designed for use in combat, legally purchased by an 18-year-old who did not try to obtain one when he was 16 or 17, but followed the law that's on the books, ladies and gentlemen, that says that you can buy not one, you can buy 2 or more if you want to, AR-15s, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and take that weapon that was originally designed for use on the battlefields in Vietnam to penetrate an enemy soldier's helmet at 500 feet and knock him down dead, up against kids at 5 feet. It may be funny to you, motherfucker, but it's not funny to me, okay?
See, I think he was waiting for it.
I don't think that he thought he was going to get laughed at. I think that this is the honest reaction of a patrician who isn't really all that happy with the plebes, who doesn't have a lot of love for the plebes and doesn't like getting laughed at by the plebes. That to me is Robert Francis O'Rourke right there, rather than Beto. Feeling as though they are not being sufficiently what's the word, worshipful.
You think that's the first time he's been laughed at on the campaign trail?
Directly, yeah. in what's supposed to be a friendly room? I don't know, possibly.
In any setting. I bet he has been ridiculed endlessly.
Oh, he has been ridiculed endlessly, but I don't know if it's been in a friendly crowd. He's been ridiculed on stage in debates, and he gets chippy about that too. I mean, not that anybody really takes that very well, but yeah, I mean, this to me is a political instinct issue. His first political instinct is to call somebody a name rather than engage, and that's, I mean, Joe Biden got to be president that way, I guess.
His first political instinct is how to make the story about him.
Yes,
and that's what he did there with the Greg Abbott event in the days following, where he crashed that event and decided to try to get in Greg Abbott's face and point at him and jeer at him. That wasn't there to console the family.
No. That was very much planned. I completely agree with you on that. That was very much a planned deal.
Right.
This I think is more revealing.
It was okay. I can grant you it was revealing. What I'm saying is this is not the first time he's done that. My guess is any opposition, you could see in the room how many cameras were on him, how many people were iPhoning this. He knew how many people were doing this, and as soon as he did that, I'm sure the first impulse in his brain is, how can I turn this into a viral moment?
Yeah. Well, he did.
And he did.
I don't think it's going to benefit him, especially not in Texas.
No.
I mean, if he's running in Massachusetts, maybe this would work, but Texas?
It won't do any more for him in Texas than having the Jets or the Sharks campaigning for him on you know. Door knocking. I don't think that's going to do him any good.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that was the fun story this morning. The not so fun story is inflation. Producer Price Index came out today. The PPI inflation rate dropped 1.5 points from 11.3% in June to 9.8% in July. The actual month on month went negative, minus 0.5%.
That's the most positive. You know, it's a negative number, but it's the most positive sign that we have seen since May or June of last year, right?
Well, it would be, except that, as the report explains, 80% of that decline was gas prices. And Duane, you and I talked about this last night on the Universe. Right. You'll probably talk about it more tonight on the Universe, but we saw this in the CPI report as well, which is that once you take energy out, once you take gas prices specifically out, everything is still going up. And that's also the case here. If you take a look at the details in the report, everything's still going up in the PPI. Food prices especially are going up in PPI. There is one thing that is going down, though, in July, which is consumption. If you take a look at the consumption numbers, because there are personal consumption numbers in the PPI, most of them are negative, which indicates which indicates, especially the ones where energy is included, which indicates that the gas price, it's another piece of evidence, I should say, that the gas price drop is a drop in demand. And a drop in energy demand is a signal of what, Duane Patterson?
Well, you see, what if we had two consecutive quarters of?
We've had two consecutive quarters of contraction. And while I will put a caveat on that first quarter, the second quarter actually contracted harder than the top line number represented, and it looks like it's still contracting.
even though there's an asterisk on that first one, we've had 6 months of negative GDP growth, right? I mean, we just factually have.
Right.
Now, you tack onto that robust 6 months worth of negative GDP growth, and now you've got a sharp decrease in demand. Again, this is not a we finally have fixed the supply chain issue. We have now flooded the market. Everything's back on the shelves. There's baby formula everywhere you look. Everything is now exactly what you want. So we have increased supply nationwide on all goods and services. We're back to pre-pandemic levels of supply chain. Therefore, that increased supply in your old high school economics, supply demand curve.
Yep.
You increase that supply curve. That's going to lower the average mean price of everything. And that's how you lower prices. That's not what's happening here. You still can't find baby formula. There are still the systemic problems that caused from putting a kink in the supply chain hose from the lockdown. That's all still there. The only thing that's different is people have decided, holy cripes, I can't afford anything. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm gonna hunker down. I'm not going to eat out as much. I'm going to eat at home. I'm going to start popping open the emergency canned goods in the pantry.
Right.
I'm not going to go to a movie. I can't afford any of the fun stuff anymore. Now, the first part of the summer, June and July, and you could say that everybody was doing the hell with it. I've got to do this. I've got to get out of the house. After a year and a half of lockdown, after all the craziness that we went through during the full weight of the pandemic,
right?
People
a lot of pent up demand. There was a lot of pent up demand.
Because people decided, come hell or high water, I'm going to go on this vacation. I didn't get to go on a vacation last year or the year before. I was stuck at home. So screw it. I don't care what things cost. I'm going to Disney World. I'm going here. I'm going there. And all of a sudden, when June and July came, there was an explosion. There was a reason why airline prices went through the freaking roof in June and July, and that's because every seat on every plane going anywhere, somebody or 5 people were clamoring for that seat because they wanted to finally get back to normal because it was abnormal for 2 years.
Well, not only but this in summer is also a big time for vacation. So there was an expectation that there was going to be a massive economic activity this summer, particularly because of the pent up demand from from the lockdown summer of 2020 and the quasi lockdown summer of 2021.
So all that jacked up demand, which is what jacked up, demand for fuel, demand for everything else. That's part of the reason why everything kept spiking all the way up through
mid-June,
right into June. So now all of a sudden you have everybody that's gone on that trip. And they're like, okay, well, I'm kind of glad I did that. I'm never going to be able to afford to go anywhere again.
I actually think that the problem is a lot of people decided that they couldn't afford it this year. And that's the reason why you're seeing the significant drop, like 23% drop over the last 6 or 7 weeks in gas prices, is that all of that, you got to remember too, that gas station owners set the price based on what they expect demand to be, right? And it's based in part on their own cost. It's really about what it's going to cost them to refill their tanks after they sell what they've got in inventory right now. So these prices were ramping up in anticipation of all the things that you just mentioned, Duane. And then I think the demand never actually materialized. I don't think people went out on the road. I don't think that people went into the hotels. I don't think that there was a lot of consumption going on this summer, vacation or otherwise. And we were seeing polling about this as early as April, I believe, saying that people were starting to get concerned and starting to scale back their vacation plans this year because of inflation.
I can tell you that there was a reason why there was such uh, craziness when it came to airline flights and lack of flight crews and lack of pilots
Well, the lack of pilots is a real significant problem. Yeah.
it is, but I'm telling you, every seat on every there was no such thing as a half full flight at any time of day. At every I mean, the airline industry was through the roof, and those prices started to come down as people finally went on whatever trip they were going to go. They may have scaled it back, but they still went. Now that that's over with, and now you've got the hangover from the vacation, and people are like, I can't afford to do anything anymore, and they're tightening the belts because you have to when inflation's in double digits. You have to tighten the belts. So everybody is doing that now. Now what you have is as you said, a 23% drop in demand, right?
Yeah, but since mid-June, I mean, that's the time that people start going on vacation is mid-June, and the price has been dropping. It peaked in mid-June at I think the EIA average was $5, $5.10, $5.11. Yeah, $5.107.
Okay.
So that was the peak. And then it dropped. It's been dropping ever since. And the drop is not related to a supply increase. In fact, supplies are expected to decrease over the next couple of months, and gas station owners are still marking down the gasoline.
We are not refining any more gas than we did.
We are at 93. I checked this today. The EIA's report, I think it came out late yesterday, said that refining capacity is still at 93% and is not expected to increase. That's about max.
It's static. There is a static amount of gas that's being refined, regardless of how much oil is being produced.
Right, and we're at low inventory levels because they can't refine. They're not refining quickly enough. Right. So you don't have a glut of supply that is lowering the price. So if your supply is constant and your price is rapidly decreasing, what's going on, Duane? Basic economics.
You have a cratering of demand, and when you have a cratering in demand, how does that reflect in a GDP? It's
a recession. It's a recession. It's either here or it's coming, and you can see this in the PPI too. If you go through like I said earlier, if you go through the consumption numbers, because there are consumption numbers in the PPI, the consumption numbers are all flipping over to negative, except for food. So what does that tell you? It tells you that people, whatever real disposable personal income that they still have left, that's been declining over 5 quarters. It's for the essentials. They are not going to spend it anywhere else. People are going to focus their attention on the essentials and not spend money anywhere else. And that is, that
is not healthy for an economy.
That is not a healthy economy. So I am looking forward. I'm actually not sure that the White House is even going to respond to the PPI. I think that they might want to just leave that alone after their zero inflation nonsense yesterday. Even Larry Summers called out the zero inflation nonsense yesterday.
Right. So let's say hypothetically we now have this demand cratering that's going on. How does when's the next time the Fed meets? Another 3 weeks, something like that?
I think it's in September. I think they took August off. And
I think it was 6 weeks from the last time till the next one. So it's like
6 weeks or 2. It might even be 2 months. It might have been because it was early July. It might be early September. So it might be 2 full months.
So we think we will probably get one more round of CPI, PPI numbers before the Fed would act, right?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close because it's the second week of September. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close.
So the Fed is almost locked into jacking them up again. It may not be a full 3 quarters again, but they're going to do another bump on top of that.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, you take a look at, the core inflation rate in the CPI was still 5.9% yesterday. So the PCE index is
up another 3 quarters.
Yeah, at least.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think they'll do a full, 100 basis point thing, a full percentage point, but they're going to do the 75 basis point increase.
So if they do another 3 quarters, and we have a similar demand track for the last couple of months, we're going to be literally knocking on the door of the midterm elections, and we will have just had the report of 3 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth.
Yeah.
So the Democratic Party is going to be running. Now I know what they're going to try to run. Yeah. They're going to try to run on Donald Trump.
That's not going to work out too well for them either, because this is going to be our final topic, is the Trafalgar poll. But you go on, finish that thought.
No, I know, and I'm leading you right into it. I know. They're going to try and run on Donald Trump. They're trying to make all things about Trump. If there's anything that they can politically use to their advantage from this botched raid in Mar-a-Lago, it's that, well, the bright side is Trump's now put himself back in the news again. He's now back at the center stage. If we run against Trump and we make Trump the boogeyman and everything, we don't have to talk about inflation. We don't have to talk about crime. We don't have to talk about education. We don't have to talk about the border. We don't have to talk about all the problems that are going on in the country, gas prices. We don't have to talk about that. We can just talk about how rotten of an SOB Donald Trump is. Except that's not what people are going to be talking about.
No, it's not.
Trafalgar just came out with a very interesting poll, and I mean this is as fresh as last night's fillet that cost you about $85. This poll had a specific question in there that was taken since the raid.
Yep.
And the question was, how much more likely are you? What's your motivation factor to vote now versus before the raid? And Ed, the findings are kind of interesting, aren't they?
They are interesting. It's actually the enthusiasm for voting in the midterms went up among all three political demos, right? Republicans, Democrats, and independents, but not equally. Duane, not equally. 53% of Democrats say that they are more motivated to. They've experienced increased motivation. I just try to be as close to the description from Trafalgar as possible, and that is the low, because among independents the number is. I'm just scrolling down on my post here. 50. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm looking at the wrong set of numbers here. Let me get back up to the correct set of numbers. I apologize. 72% of independents are more motivated. 83% of Republicans are more motivated. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what about the independents? What's motivating the independents, Duane, in Trafalgar? Well, they don't drill down through asking the question. However, there's another question that's part of this, right? And the other question that's part of this poll is, who do you believe is behind the FBI raid on President Trump's private home? And you've got two choices: Trump's political enemies, or two, the impartial justice system. Now, overall, Trump's political enemies, 8% more Americans believe it's based on Trump's political enemies than the impartial justice system. That's 48-40, basically. However, among Democrats, 71% think it's the impartial justice system. 12% think it's Trump's political enemies, and about 18% don't know. Republicans, 76.7% of them think it's Trump's political enemies. Unaffiliated voters, 53.9% of them think it was done by Trump's political enemies. Only 35% of those think that it was the impartial justice system.
You see, here's the thing that the bubble in D.C. and Manhattan miss. Paul Begala was on CNN, and he was saying, this only pisses off Trump's base. And I don't care if Trump's base gets pissed off, because they're always pissed off. They're pissed off at sunrise. They're pissed off at sunset. They're pissed off at Christmas. They're pissed off all the time. Who cares? They're not a majority. They're not going to be the movers and shakers here. He's totally missing who saw this raid and really took offense to it and are motivated to do something about it. And here's why. Independence. What makes independence independence? They
They don't
have
like either party. It's
they don't
usually what
like,
it is. They don't like either party, so they just don't affiliate.
but their attitude, everything is a fairness issue with them, right? To
Yeah,
independents, they see things as, well, both parties do this. Both parties are this. They don't like to play favorites. They like to kind of try to keep that balance of, I don't want to favor one side or the other, but they like to kind of look at the world through a balanced scale or a balanced lens. And when something like this happens, it's so obvious. I mean, this has never
right.
been done before. Um, Trump could turn over this warrant all day long, but I'm not even sure he still has. The
Nobody knows
story.
if he's even been given access to it. I mean, the reporting yesterday was that they refused to leave a copy of it, which is unusual.
I
And
saw reporting this morning that Trump's legal team are writing up a motion today to ask for a physical hard copy of the affidavit and the warrant because they don't have it, right?
right,
So independents are looking at this going, well, I may not like Trump, but this ain't right.
yeah, this stinks. They're saying this
This
stinks.
stinks.
This
This
stinks.
stinks.
Yes. And I think even within the Republican coalition, there are probably people who say, "Well, I don't like Trump, but this stinks." And
Right.
here's we can talk a little bit about what Matt Taibbi had to say too. But honestly, this is something that I had been thinking about um, in terms of this, which is that this is actually going to backfire on Democrats because it's going to remind Republicans that that they've got bigger fish to fry than their own internal divisions. And this is going to be a unifying, a clarifying event, I guess, that you can say, at least in the midterms, at least for a short term, saying, yeah, we can fight about this after the midterms, but right now we really need to get these guys out of there so that we can get some checks and balances on what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I think independents are going to start leaning that way too. And I think it's really going to upset the table in terms of midterm turnout modeling for pollsters. And it probably, which was probably off already anyway, but I think that this makes it a whole lot more dicey. And if there was any complacency on the right over the red wave and, well, I don't need to do a lot of work because Joe Biden's really doing all of our work for us, I think that's out the window. And now people are not just unhappy with Joe Biden, but they're actively angry and they want to actively get involved. I mean,
Yes.
those numbers from Trafalgar are those are
Pretty
pretty
stunning, aren't they?
spectacular. Yeah, they're
And
pretty
and
spectacular.
and again, you marry those with what the turnout models were. I don't remember which poll it was, but there was the two primaries this week, the one in Wisconsin and the one in Minnesota.
Yeah.
The energy, if you look at the last comparable, which is the 2018 midterms, in both states, in Wisconsin and in Minnesota, the Republican turnout in the 22 primary this week versus the 2018 primary, the GOP was up like 23, 24%, something like that.
Yep.
And the Democratic turnout was down. It was off 6% or 8% or something like that. Look, I'm not saying the Republicans are gonna win Minnesota. That's we've been chasing that.
Yeah.
We've
I'll
been,
predict the first. I'll predict
we
that after the first time it happened since 2006.
we've been chasing that white whale ever since the book got written, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what I'm telling you is, for all this talk from the left, all this happy talk whistling past the graveyard about the wave's going to be it's going to be like a little 2-inch tsunami. It's going to be nothing. We had all these tsunami warnings. It's going to be nothing. It's ebbed. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I'm not buying it yet. I'm not buying it at all. Parents are still pissed at what happened to their kids
Yep.
during the pandemic and what schools are doing now. They're pissed about dudes swimming in the pools with the girls and changing in the locker room with the girls. They're pissed at what's going on the border. They're pissed that there's homeless people sleeping everywhere now. They're pissed at rampant crime going everywhere, and this is just icing on the cake. They're looking at this going, oh, for Christ's sake. Now we've turned into Cuba.
Yeah. Yep. And that's Taby's point too, which I link in the post. I won't belabor it, but basically, you know, Taby, who's a guy on the left, by the way, but he's just an interesting read and is an intellectually honest guy on the left. There are plenty of those. I mean, I could point out at least a few other people who might be interesting reads in that sense, but I'll just read this here, and we talked a little bit about it last night, and then we'll wrap up and find out what's going on in the Hugh Hewitt show tomorrow. But it says, as of now, it's impossible to say if Trump's alleged defense was great, small, or in between, but this for sure is a huge story, and its hugeness extends in multiple directions, including the extraordinary political risk inherent in the decision to execute the raid. If it backfires, if underlying this action there isn't a very substantial there, the Biden administration just took the world's most reputable police force and turned it into the American version of the Tonton Macoute on national television. We may be looking at simultaneously the dumbest and the most inadvertently destructive political gambit in recent history of this country. Yeah.
And again, you know,
dumbest for sure.
Dumbest for sure. And again, that is a very telling statement, especially when the whole Russiagate debacle and the Steele dossier is not that long ago.
Which is a major part of his argument, which is that the Democrats are offering all the same nonsensical defenses of this as they did with the Steele dossier. Well, they got a FISA warrant, so that must mean they had something.
Right. No, they wouldn't have taken these steps unless they really had something.
Right. Yeah. This is a really good essay. This is a really good essay, and it's a subscription model, so I didn't want to excerpt too much of it. I want people to go over there and subscribe.
But again, written from somebody on the left.
Yeah.
And you know who else has joined him, saying that maybe this was a bridge too far? Andrew Cuomo.
Well, yeah. Don't mention it. Ixnay and the Cuomo thing. Yang, I'll take. Cuomo is like, no. Stay away from the Cuomos.
I understand, but I was reading that going, wait a minute. When was the last time I agreed with Cuomo?
I really, honest to God, don't want people to force me to be on the same side of anything as Andrew Cuomo. If he says good morning, I want to still feel free to look out the window just to confirm.
Yes. I get it. I understand.
All right. Speaking of looking out the window and good mornings, how's that for a segue? What's coming up on tomorrow's Hugh Hewitt show, Duane?
It's actually going to be a very fascinating interview. We just finished taping it just a few minutes ago or an hour ago. Elliot Ackerman, who is a writer over at The Atlantic, and he's most notably remembered as the co-author of 2034, which is the novel about the coming U.S.-China war that he co-wrote with Admiral James Stavridis. Very, very gifted writer, military background, really good guy. He's also really good friends with John Ondrasik, and has just written a new book that is just spectacular called The Fifth Act, which is the definitive look at the whole debacle of the abandonment of Afghanistan by the Biden administration. And we taped about 35-40 minutes with him. It's going to play back tomorrow in the middle hour of the show. We'll also have Sunny Bunch. We'll do the Hillsdale Hour with Larry Arnn, all that kind of normal stuff. But this book by Elliot Ackerman is a spectacular read. If you want to kind of get your blood boiling again and remember why you were so upset at what Biden was doing and why. This captures everything that led up to the capitulation and ultimate surrender of Joe Biden to the Taliban in Afghanistan. That's what's ahead tomorrow.
All right. Well, that's coming up tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 a.m. in God's time zone, 3 a.m. on the left coast, and you can watch it live on the Huniverse, HUGHNIVERSE.com, the troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt fans and listeners. And by the way, you can watch Duane's after show tonight. Duane, you're going to be doing the video rundown, right? I mean, that's
I'm sure there's going to be stuff going on today.
All right, so lots of stuff coming up. 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight for that, by the way. 7 p.m. in God's time zone. 5 p.m. On the left coast. You guys can do the math. I just like doing it myself. And if you don't subscribe to the universe, well, I don't know why, but if you don't subscribe to the universe, you can find the Hugh Hewitt Show on the AM radio dial. Duane, what should people do if they can't find the Hugh Hewitt Show on the AM radio dial?
Well, you go into the general manager's office of a radio station we should be on, and you sit down and you look that general manager right in the eye and say, well, I have this buddy that's in Quantico, and I could drop a little dime and say where we can find some very special documents in your wife's undie drawer, and where you keep your safe, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens because we know that you have spoken favorably about Donald Trump before.
Well, there you go.
We'll be on that station in 5 minutes.
That would do it. The other thing that I might suggest is you send Beto O'Rourke in there too as your sales pitch guy. Because clearly the guy's got great sales instincts. Beto O'Rourke.
Absolutely right. What's that? You don't want to pay our spot rate? Well, you MFer.
Yeah, screw you, MFer.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Duane Patterson of the Hugh Hewitt Show, master of the universe, HUGHNIVERSE.com. Thanks for another fun week of doing this podcast, and we'll see you back here next week, sir.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, guys.
All right, stay tuned for one last message from the Ed Morrissey Show coming right up. Thank you for watching and listening to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube to get alerted as soon as new episodes get published. You can support the Ed Morrissey Show and Hot Air's VIP reporting by becoming a VIP member, too. Visit hotairvip.com and use the promo code SAVEAMERICA, all one word, for 40% off your membership. Choose VIP Gold and gain membership to access to all of the Town Hall sites. Thanks again for watching and listening.